As I was trying to write this speech today, I was called away to do some photographs, so I'm going to be making it up as I go along. I'll try not to be funnier than the last guy. And I just wanted to start by talking about how I got here, actually. Larry really reminded me of that. And I have a blog on leadership. It is the number 4th most shared blog. And Michelle Johnson contacted me and asked me, would I be interested in promoting an author's book? I said, well, okay, but I'm starting a radio show. Why don't we do a radio interview? She introduced me to David, did the interview with David, so I got to know David. Michelle then said to me, why don't I introduce you to Ken and get you to come and speak at this event? I called Ken. Ken said, I hear you have a book. Could I publish that book? So I'm not sure whether there was something underhand going on. And really they were after the book all along. But I just want to reiterate what Larry said about the connections and the way we help people can really make a difference. I have a question for you. Hands up, all those who'd like an insatiable Twitter following. Yeah. Sorry, I said yeah. Yeah, let's get some energy. Okay, well, I'm going to tell you how we're going to do that. And I'm going to tell you my fast approach to Twitter. And Fast is the book that you can see outside. Are they on sale yet? Oh. It's an outstanding book. I keep telling people that, and sooner or later somebody's going to believe it. And what I'm going to talk to you today about is how I've used Fast to build a Twitter following, and I did it in 12 months, that took me from basically unknown to the #1 leadership expert on Twitter. By using that content, that influence, and that following, that got me into Inc. magazine as the top 100 great leadership experts. I was 3 behind Bill Gates. If you're going to be 3 behind Bill Gates on a list, it needs to be the money list, though. Start selling that book. I haven't done anything else. This book is it. This is my last shot at that list. So I'm going to start by telling you how you can build a following on Twitter. Now, the easiest way to do it is to be super famous. Okay? That's option 1. And if you're super famous, you can just go to the bar now. You don't need to hear the rest of this. You're good to go. Now, if you're not super famous, like me, who's not super famous, that is, the #1 way to build a following on Twitter is to follow people. Okay, really clear with that. So we find somebody who's in our group, we follow their followers, we buy 20,000 fake followers that allows us to keep going. And when we do that, we can build our following. One of the challenges of doing that is I have this huge following, but I have no content now. And if you have no content, there's no engagement, and you don't really have any following. You used to have some people who are sat waiting for you. So now what you need to do is you need to start providing content, and the content has to be great content. And where are you going to get great content from? Anybody heard of something called Google? Yeah, Google's full of great content. The #1 thing I found that people love to see is quotes. So I know what you're thinking, but that's not your material, Gordon. Doesn't matter. I tweet it, it's mine. People recognize it as my content. I can tweet to be or not to be, and I can put William Shakespeare, and people write back to me going, I love your words. Which is really good. And I love tweeting stuff from Shakespeare because it kind of, I didn't do very well in English, so I'm kind of, I use that to offset my poor performance. Okay, so now we've got the audience built, and that's growing nicely, 1,000 to 2,000 a week. We've got our content built. What we need to do is we need to think about what's the hashtag we're going to use to tweet it under. So you need to find a hashtag which people are looking for that's going to make your content visible to them. If you just put it under, if you create your own tweet, if I create my own hashtag, Gordon Tredgold Leadership Expert, nobody's going to find that. Nobody's looking for me that doesn't know me. They're looking for something else. They're looking for leadership, or if your speciality is self-help, You need to put something which is going to allow them to find you. And if you don't do that, then not hashtagging is the same as not tweeting. So get the right hashtag. But if you tweet something and put my handle in there, I'll retweet it and help spread your word. Yeah. So when it comes to tweeting, does anybody know how many tweets there are a second? 6,000 tweets a second. 6,000 tweets a second, 350,000 tweets an hour, and it's 500 million tweets a day. If you're only tweeting once or twice a day, that's the same as not tweeting. So we need to be tweeting multiple times a day, and we need to be tweeting during peak times. And the peak retweeting times for this time zone is between 12, midday and midnight. So you want to be tweeting during that period. My recommendation is you need to be tweeting at least once an hour. Minimum once an hour. If you don't, you are not going to make a ripple. If you're only tweeting 2 or 3 times a day, that's the same as not tweeting at all. When you're tweeting once an hour, that's only giving you local time zone coverage. If you want to be global, and you want to be tweeting at least 24 times a day, and if you want to be a Twitter rock star and really get noticed, I tweet 100 times a day. This is why it needs to be automated. This is why I need 3,000 items of content. And when you tweet 100 times a day, that sounds a lot, but it's only 4 to 5 times an hour, once every 15 minutes. Yeah, I know what you're saying, I know what you're thinking, but you have to bear in mind, every second there's 6,000 tweets, 6,000 tweets. My tweet's top of the pile, it's bottom of the pile. Only 1% of my following see my tweets, which I'd like it to be higher, but I'm also happy that it's 1% because it allows me to retweet the same stuff every single week or every single month because people don't see it. And let me tell you, if somebody comes back to me after 2 months and says, just a second, I've read all of your tweets and you've repeated them, that's a stalker. That's a stalker. And get them off your list. No hugs for stalkers, unless they're good looking. And once we've started doing the tweeting, we then need to look at engagement. And when you're looking at engagement, any engagement that comes into you is a retweet, a favorite, or a reply, or a mention when somebody just tweets to you. Because what I get now is people tweeting me leadership quotes. And also, on the content thing, one of the things we need to do, as well as sending out the content about leadership, the quotes, articles, we also need to tweet personal stuff. People love the personal stuff. So status updates like Facebook. I tweet my Nike Plus running efforts. They go out and people comment back on it because they're now commenting back on something personal. They like to comment on a tweet, a quote, an article, but they really like to say, oh, good effort on the running, or really? So to build an insatiable tribe, what we need to do is we need to build our following. We do that by following people in our niche, and 40 to 50% will follow back. Then we need to create the content. As I say, go get somebody on Fiverr or Odesk, Upwork, go and get them to get you 1,000 quotes, copy those quotes onto an image. This gives you 2,000, sprinkling any content you've ever created. We need to tweet 24 times a day, and ideally I would do more than 2 to 3 times an hour. Get your hashtag right, and then when people engage, don't automate that part. Everything else you can automate. I have people in Manila that do the work for me. This is how I can get 100 tweets out every single day. So you can outsource all of that. You can outsource the procurement of content, but you cannot outsource the engagement. The interaction has to be your interaction. And when you follow this approach, and not only have I done it for myself, I've also done it for colleagues and clients, it took me 9 months to build a following of 80,000. And that's how I got on to be a #1 leadership expert to follow on Twitter. And that's based on retweets and engagement. and that got me noticed for all the content that I produced and got me into Inc. magazine as top 100 leadership expert. And it took my blog, because I was now using this network to share my content, took my blog to the number 4th most shared blog. So, if you follow my fast approach, you will build a following fast. Thank you.